Welcome back. Now let's talk about comprehension, which is really what it's all about, isn't it? In this short series, I've talked about engaging them, teaching them, expanding their vocabulary, testing them, personalizing their materials, and now let's talk about comprehension. So we begin with referential comprehension because it's the easiest to teach. There are technically three kinds of comprehension, but we're going to focus on referential. You can refer back to the text and find what you're looking for. Inferential, which is a lot harder, and that takes time to develop with our learners. You've got to take abstract facts from what you just read and put them together and come up with the answer. You have to infer the answer. It's not readily apparent. It's not right there in the text. Now, an incredibly important help for developing comprehension is what I preach all along in my book, Whole Child Reading. We teach reading for meaning. We teach reading for meaning. If we teach reading for meaning, then comprehension naturally follows, because there's no point in reading the material in the first place unless you're reading for meaning. A quick story about that. So my son, who's now 38, I taught him to read starting when he was 4.5. By the time he was about 8.5, he had figured out how to decode. That was not a problem. And all of his books were made by me, homemade. So fast forward, he's about 18 years old. The whole family goes to see Lion King on Broadway. Jonathan studies the program during intermission. We're driving home and the rest of the family is talking about Scar. Oh, he was so great. Jonathan says, yeah, Scar was played by Patrick Page. He also played the role of Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast on Broadway. The rest of the family's going, oh. He'd been studying the program. He always wanted to know what's in the material, because that's how he learned to read. That is the way my generation and the next several decades learned to read. The Dick and Jane books, we learned letter sounds, and then we learned by familiarity, reading the same words over and over again. And eventually what happens is decoding kicks in, and I can vouch for that in other stories. But decoding kicks in, and of course comprehension is there from the get-go. So I said we start with referential comprehension when we're teaching comprehension. In the Whole Child Reading program, I've developed a comprehension evaluation series. Now, I designed my comprehension series so that it could be used by children who are completely nonverbal, if necessary. All of the little tests in those comprehension books can be taken without speaking a word. You'll understand when you read the instructions. Now, in the comprehension chapter in my book, Whole Child Reading, I give very specific tips that are particularly for learners with Down syndrome and autism, as far as helping them to comprehend and to answer comprehension questions that are typically difficult, such as who, when, where, why, right? The WH questions, which can trip them up. It's an integral system. Everything works together. So the comprehension evaluation series is based on the high frequency word series. Those books correspond to the 3 Dolch levels that I teach in the program: emergent, primer, and first grade. Because we want to make sure that they have been able to generalize those words that they learned and that they comprehend the meaning within each sentence or phrase. Now, an important resource I want to tip you off to is a book called Strategies That Work by Harvey and Goodvis, and you can get it on Amazon. There are more comprehension strategies in that book than you would ever be able to apply in your entire lifetime. You'll learn comprehension strategies for active learning. For instance, if a child is more advanced, he's reading a paragraph, then you stop and you talk about that paragraph. What happened? What do you think is going on here? Etc. It teaches our kids for the first time to think, instead of rote reading without ever stopping for punctuation or ever understanding the meaning of what they just read. If instead they've been taught that decoding is the purpose of reading, and then that is the focus and that is what you must do, then meaning is out the window, partly because we're pausing and we're trying to figure things out. Our tech work and decoding work should be done separately from reading, and I give lots of information about that in my book. So follow me, and next time we're going to talk about the extra perks that come along with this Whole Child Reading program. I'll see you then.